r/AskReddit, what's the most statistically unlikely thing that has ever happened to you? I managed to break my neck and back in a horrible rollover car accident and walked away from the scene. The medics didn't think I needed help because I didn't feel any pain, so my mom drove me to the hospital where they sewed my head shut. I split it open in 3 places, then they told me to take ibuprofen for swelling and pain and sent me on my way. For 2 weeks the pain kept getting more and more unbearable until I was laying on the couch one day before school and went to sit up and immediately blacked out. A quick trip to the doctors with some x-rays and MRIs found out I had fractured my C4 and C5 in my neck and fractured L2-5 in my lower back. I also had a head injury they equated to getting hit in the head with a hammer repeatedly and wondered why the hospital didn't look me over. 10 years later I can still walk, in constant pain, but I'm alive, and it's always a reminder to not take life for granted because given my odds of what happened and how the car looked, I shouldn't even be here. Yeah, the doc that sewed you up on your first ER visit should have been sued into cinders. That's malpractice if you weren't x-rayed. Any head injury due to that kind of trauma, car accident, gets x-rayed. Royal flush in a game of Texas Hold'em. I was shaking with excitement, terrible poker face, but 2 other guys thought I was bluffing and went all in. I played poker by the rules as seen in Red Dead Redemption, because we were too lazy to look up any other rules. I think that's Texas Hold'em in the game. Anyway, we had a royal flush on the table. I looked through the stack of cards, they were properly shuffled. We just, somehow ended up with a royal flush on the table. About 7 years ago, I worked at a McDonald's in a small town, less than 2,000 people. This guy and his family had moved from a few towns over and he became a regular customer. One day I was taking his order and saw he had a Halo 3 wallet, so I suggested we play sometime. I grabbed a pen so we could write down our gamer tags, and we realized that we were already friends. We had met in a game a few months prior and been playing semi-regularly at that point. I have a friend who had this happen to him. He is really into CSGO and one day he met someone and started queuing with him. After being friends with him for about 4 months they get into a conversation about where they live. It turns out that they not only live in the same neighborhood, but on the same street with only 4 houses between them. Was laying down in the back seat of a 1998 or so Dodge Neon. Car crashed at about 75 miles per hour, it rolled 3.5 times and landed upside down. During that flipping fiasco I somehow inadvertently managed to get my elbow over my head in time to go headfirst out that tiny little rear window. I landed on my feet, didn't stick the landing exactly, but did a messy, gentle tuck/fall down in the mud thing a couple feet from the road. My elbow was open to the bone, but packed with mud so I had no real issues there. I had no broken bones, my cell phone was still in my pocket and working. I got up and called for help. I have no clue how the hell I got physics ed out that window without dying. According to the paramedics most people don't get thrown out of cars and live, much less walk around relatively fine. I was about 18, and I was heading into the biggest nightclub in the world, Privilege in Ibiza, and I had a disposable camera with all of my photos from my holiday on it. The bouncers told me that I wasn't allowed to take my disposable camera in with me, and that I would have to throw it away. I looked over to the side and there was this huge mountain of disposable cameras, from people who had the same problem as me. There were hundreds of them, honestly maybe even thousands. Most of them were the same brand as mine and looked identical. I sighed, figured that having the experience was better than keeping the photos, and threw my camera onto the pile. Went in, yada yada, had a few drinks and a mong out, saw a midget sex show, blah blah blah. At the end of the night we stumbled outside to see daylight, and the pile of cameras looking even bigger. I walked over to it, grabbed one at random, thinking that I would at least get them developed and get a laugh out of someone else's photos, and lo and behold, it was my camera. Saw a midget sex show, blah blah blah. That's normal, yeah, you right. Pulled an entire row of E's in Scrabble once. I was pissed. Is my favorite word. If there was an R on the board in the right spot, you could play While going for a walk, a squirrel dropped a pine cone on my head. This is my favorite answer in the whole thread. Another, I don't know if it counts, but I was on a roller coaster and the guy behind me caught my cell phone as it went flying out of my pocket. I figure the odds of that happening compared to the odds of it just flying out the back of the coaster forever have to be small. That happened to me with my hat. Went flying off on some crazy turn on a roller coaster and I'm just thinking should I like that hat? Turn around and guy behind me has it in his hat. I gotcha buddy. I kind of have a similar story. I was on the Aerosmith coaster at Walt Disney World and the kid I was sitting next to had his phone out. Literally right before the ride shoots forward he drops it on the bottom of the car. We look at each other and I just had my foot on it for the whole ride. Not really against the odds, but it was an exciting situation. I lost some keys while crossing a mountain creek in the Alps. More than 2 years later I found them on the shore of a mountain lake a few miles downstream. They didn't fit anymore, so I don't know what the universe was trying to tell me with that gesture. Not me but a friend. Met a guy in a club. Had a one-night stand. Got pregnant. She did not get any contact info on him. She has the girl and fast forward about 2 years she is out again and runs into him. So she approaches him and just says she needs to talk to him and they exchange details so they can meet up the next day. She doesn't want to break the news then and there that he had a daughter. After she walks away the friend he was with says, "Dude, either your dick is going to fall off or she had your baby." I guess he could just tell in her face there was something important going on. But that isn't even the crazy part. So she gives the daughter a first name and uses the mother's last name. Once she makes contact with the dad she finds out the dad's last name is also the daughter's first name. Confused. So let's say the daughter was Jane Smith. The dad was Bill Jane. She wants the daughter to have her dad's last name, so now the kid is officially Jane Jane. Try explaining that to a bunch of kids at school. A friend was parking my car and they heavily scraped the side of the bumper. Fast forward 3 months while I'm still too lazy to have it repaired, a guy in a parking lot backs up into the exact spot where the previous damage was. The accident was his fault and his insurance paid for the entire repair. Huzzah! My 1984 Honda Accord with 350,000 miles on it ran okay, but the first start in the morning was an oil-smoking mess. A mechanic had looked at it and pretty much said stop spending money on it, keep dumping oil in it and drive it until it dies, which is going to be pretty soon. Even if I put in a new $4,000 engine the car would only be worth $1,500 at most. I was sitting at a red light and a guy in a Mercedes banged into me. The car was still drivable but the back left was pretty wrinkled up. Whatever. The car's remaining life was being measured in weeks, maybe months. The guy's insurance called me and said they'd pay for the damage. I figured they'd total the car and that was it. Then one day an attorney showed up and offered me $1,500 damage to the car and $6,000 to not sue the Mercedes guy. Sure. I didn't plan on it anyway, but for $6,000 I definitely won't. Every car should get hit by a rich guy in a Mercedes a few weeks before you get rid of it. It's one of two things. I once ran into my uncle in the Denver airport. Neither of us lives in Denver, neither of us was flying to or from Denver. We both just happened to have connecting flights at the same time, and they were one gate apart from each other. The second is the conception of my second child. It was very hard for my wife and I to have our first kid. It took 3 years, 3 miscarriages, and medical assistance. The second daughter was conceived shortly before the older one's first birthday, at a time when we were having sex once a week if we were lucky. Plus my wife was on birth control, was still breastfeeding, and hadn't had her first period since giving birth. My theory about running into people you know abroad or in strange places is that sure it's a small world and all, but the first world is even smaller. The socio-economic groups you're a part of generally do the same things, i.e. travel the same way, to the same sort of places, at the same full moon parties, etc. Funny you used full moon party as an example, because I bumped into a family friend that I hadn't seen in years in Keofanan during a full moon party. There must have been 1,000s of people there. I was jumping that flammable skipping rope with a few other people and it caught someone's foot, resulting in the inferno rope wrapping around my drunk ass, nearly setting me alight. He said he saw it happen but didn't know it was me at the time. I encountered 2 shiny Pokemon in a row in Pokemon Sapphire. Odds are like 1,000,000,000 to 1. My first Pokemon game was Diamond, and one of the first Pokemon I ever caught was a shiny Shinx, unlike the first or second route or something. Didn't even know what a shiny was, didn't even notice it was different. I was just catching everything at the time, and my brother saw it later and was like, whoa. I happened to be at a baseball game where a player, Corey Sullivan of the Rockies, hit 2 triples in 1 inning. It hadn't happened since 1951, has never happened since, it was 2006, and has happened only 11 times in the history of the major leagues. It's a very who cares accomplishment, but it's rarer than a perfect game. My sister was born May 17th. My cousin was also born in May 17th. My wife has a close cousin that she consider like a sister that was also born in May 17th, at the same year of my sister. This cousin also has a close cousin that was born in May 17th. I got my wife pregnant in 2015, she should gave birth in May 25th. My father joked the entire pregnancy that the baby would be born in May 17th. Guess what happened at 6:50 May/17/2016? I was born on August 8th. My great-great-grandfather was born on August 8th, exactly 100 years apart. We also have the exact same name. My parents did not even know he existed when they named me. I was playing a card game and needed to do a few dice rolls. Managed to land on 6-7 times in a row. 279,936 to 1 if I'm remembering how to calculate probability correctly. There's every probability that I'm not though, it's been a long time. Never tell me the odds. My mom took so many antidepressants and bad combinations of them, smoked, drank, etc. while pregnant with me. The doctor told her to have an abortion because the odds of me coming out physically and mentally normal were next to none. As in I'd never be able to function on my own. Wella, I'm graduating college in May. Suck that statistics. Edit, it stays. Wella. I see your speech centers were left unaffected. Chronic myelogenous leukemia. Fewer than 200,000 cases diagnosed per year and caused by a spontaneous chromosome mutation with no known cause. And it's most commonly found in the elderly, 60 plus. I was diagnosed at 22. Edit, IA word. Also, to clarify, and also relay another statistically unlikely part to this, I've been in remission for a while thanks to a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor. I have a unique last name. I've never met another non-relative with my last name. I get a new job and a different company in a city I was not born in. In a company of 1,000 people, in my department, on my floor, 5 cubes from my office is a girl with the same last name as me. The kicker, her first name is the same as my wife's. I knocked up a one-night stand with twins. Like, first of all, everything had to be just right for us to meet, then she ended up ovulating, then she didn't really care if I didn't pull out so I didn't, and twins. I knocked up a one-night stand with twins. For a sec I thought you were saying you had a one-night stand with twins, and you knocked both of them up. With twins. Man, imagine the odds of that. Best night of your life yields 4 children from 2 mothers. What a plot twist. You could call it a one-night Shyamalan. My mom became pregnant with triplets after only being with my dad for a few months, while on birth control, and also being told she was unable to have children by her doctor. Nature said fuck science that day. Mom's ovaries said, hold my beer. My wife and I played the video game Batman Arkham City together for weeks on end. The night we finished the game and shortly after my wife had left for bed, I was shutting down the computer when all of a sudden a bat flew through the security gate into our living room, flying circles in the room. I guided the bat out and told my wife about it. We had a chuckle about the whole incident, especially after our weeks of playing Batman. Anyway, the following day at dusk I was seeing two friends out after their visit. Walking them out, I told them the story of the bat after we played Batman. Immediately after finishing the story, from out of nowhere a bat flew right into the left side of my neck. It gave me such a fright. I was so startled that I slapped at my neck. Worst part is my two friends didn't see the bat crashing into me and were surprised at my sudden reaction to apparently nothing. They didn't see anything because it was too dark already at dusk. So, needless to say, I don't share this story with many people as I'm afraid I'll come across as a jerk making up crazy stories. Hell, I won't believe me either. Good thing you weren't playing Plage Incorporated instead. During D&D my friend rolled 5 nat 20s in a row. That's 1 in 3.2 million. You have been blessed by Timora, goddess of fortune and chance. Like, comment, and subscribe to never be told the odds. Also, comment on what you want my next video to be on.